first thing we're going to talk about is QIYAS and the different types of QIYAS. And the second thing we're going to talk about is istihsan. And the third thing we're going to talk about is maqasid al-sharia. And the fourth thing we're going to talk about is saddu well, we'll leave it at those three, okay? So anybody know what QIYAS is by any chance? Anybody ever heard of the word QIYAS? What is QIYAS? What is the purpose of QIYAS in Islamic law? So let me start off with something very, very basic. Let's say you're driving a car, okay? This is a classic, one of the classic questions that's asked in a philosophy class that's dealing with justice. Let's say you're driving a car, and not that you're driving a car, but you're in a car, or you're driving a car, and if you go straight, you're going to kill 5 people, or you're going to hit 5 people. But if you turn to the right, you only kill 1 person or hurt only 1 person. What do you think you should do? Keep going straight, or turn to the right? I'm going to also ask you another example. I'm going to give you like a series of examples and try to help you understand how Islamic scholars grappled with some of these difficult questions. Here's another question. There is 3 people who need organs in a hospital. Somebody needs a liver, somebody needs a kidney, somebody needs a pancreas. And there is another person in another room, he's completely healthy. Do you take out his organs and give it to the 3? So you save 3 lives for 1. Another example would be, which is a real case example. This is actually a real case example, so it's not something theoretical. People are in a boat, and they've lost their way, and there are 5 people on a boat. Abu Bakr, if you could take him over there, please. This little one. So there are 5 people in the boat. They've been in the sea for 18 days. They have absolutely no food, no water, no nothing. The 5 people decide to kill one of them. To save the life of the 4, they kill one of them. Now, what would be the Islamic result of something like that? Should they be tried for murder? Or is that going to be a type of insanity? Or what will that situation be considered within an Islamic civilization, or within the Islamic context? So what do you think about the first question? There's a man, he's driving a car, and he's going to hit 5 people, but he can take things into his own hand, turn right, and hit 1 person. What would you do? What would you do, Steve?
I don't think there's really a right answer.
You don't think there's a right answer?
No, I think it's situational. I mean, really, it would come down to the intent of the man.
Okay, so if you keep going straight, you might hurt or kill 5 people.
Yes, but
if you turn the car to the right, now you have taken responsibility on the consequences of what will happen.
Yeah.
Right? As long as the car is going straight, even though it'll kill more people, you're technically not responsible for the result. I'm helping you out here. So now what would you do?
I mean, like, I still feel it's, I couldn't answer.
What would you do? The car is going to go and hit 5 people. Are you going to turn it and face court for that decision? Or you're going to let it keep going and hit 5 people and whatever Allah decides?
It's hard to put yourself in that situation.
No, okay. What about another situation? What about if you're on a boat for 18 days, you're 5 friends, you can either kill one of your friends and survive, this is an actual case, or you can just all decide to die. What would you do?
I think I found a loophole in that.
No, there's no loophole. This actually happened.
Yeah.
One of the friends, of the 5 friends, said, okay, fine, kill me so you can eat my body and survive. The Coast Guard just happened to come the next day. And when they went there, they saw the dead body, they arrested them, they were tried, so on and so forth. What would Islam allow you to kill somebody to save your life or in the life of your friends?
I don't think so, no.
What do you think?
You said if I keep straight, then it's not my fault, right?
No, you can decide yourself.
Well, I mean, if I keep straight,
If you keep straight, you kill 5 people.
but
For sure.
that maybe I will kill 5 people, right?
You said maybe.
Maybe, yes. You don't know what the result will be. The car is going to hit 5 people. It might kill 1 person, might kill 2 people,
Right.
might kill all 5, might kill no one.
I would keep straight before I make the decision to kill.
Huh?
I would keep straight before I would make the decision to turn right and know that for a fact.
So the only reason you don't want to turn right is so that you don't go to court.
Yeah, and kill, because I don't want to intentionally kill 3 people.
So you would rather save yourself and not go to court and kill 5 people.
I'd rather take the chance of perhaps maybe not killing all 5 people.
You'd rather what?
Not take the chance. Like, I'd rather, like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to kill 5 people. But if I turn right, I'm certain that I'm going to kill 3 other people.
Is it not just as much of a choice to keep straight as it is to turn right?
Okay, good question. Very good question. So you're in a situation, you're mukallaf of the situation, right? But certainly, you're less responsible for letting nature take its course. You cannot be taken to court for letting things go the way that they were planning to go,
Yeah.
right? So, but if you turn the car, now somebody's going to ask you, why did you turn the car? And now somebody died. And you're going to have to say, well, I was trying to save those 5 people. Would you do that?
Minimize damage, yeah.
Would you do that?
I think probably.
So then, if you would do that, then why would you not take out the organs of the person? So there's, let's say, a hospital,
Yeah.
and there's somebody who needs a kidney, a liver, or a pancreas, and another person is completely well-to-do, then why would we not in the hospital kill that person that's well-to-do and take his organs and put it into the person that needs the organs? Why would we not do that?
I mean, because that person shouldn't try to bear.
Because if you say that it's okay to turn right to save the 5, then based upon the same logic, it should be okay to take the organs of the people that are healthy to save the people that are not.
No. I'm not saying it's okay to turn right. I don't think it's okay. I think it's better to let nature take its course.
Okay. So then you would say, let these people die and let's not give them any organs too.
Not to kill one person. No, that one person, that's not their decree. Like, they are healthy. They shouldn't be made to die just to save 3 other people.
What do you think?
Not good.
Huh?
Do you mean?
Would you turn right or take out the organs?
Well, it depends. Like, I'm sure 100%. Like, if I'm gonna keep straight and make it a 5, then I might take the right, and then I'm sure that I will kill like anyone.
But by that logic, you'll be okay by taking organs of other people.
No, because I'm in a situation that someone, like, I have either 5 to be killed or 1 person to be killed.
And over here, you can save 3 people who need organs versus 1 person who is healthy.
No, but I'm not gonna kill someone just to save other people's life.
Okay? So let's talk about qiyas.
What about question? Are there any other options? Not
No. These are the options in this scenario that I'm giving. Otherwise, it defeats the purpose of the discussion, right? So qiyas. Let's talk about qiyas. Qiyas is called analogy. Okay? So in Islamic law, we use an analogy for a situation that the Quran does not tell us what to do, and we use analogy when the Sunnah of the Prophet is not telling us what to do. Because the text is limited, right? Quran is limited about talking about limited events, and hadith of the Prophet is talking about limited events, and the events of life are unlimited, right? And so, let me give you an example. Quran does not give us, Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet, well, no, I want to retract that. Quran does not give us, and the Sunnah does not give us directly, the punishment of the person who drinks alcohol. Quran doesn't say, the person who drinks alcohol, lash him 70 times. So how did the companions of the Prophet reach a conclusion to lash someone 40 times, 70 times, based upon the fact that he's taking alcohol? Quran only says, don't take alcohol. So what happened is, and this is how analogy works. What happened is, and you'll see how this ties into the previous examples I was giving, that'll become more clear there. So, the companions of the Prophet read in the Quran that when you say something about anyone that is not true, the result will be that you need to be lashed. When you drink alcohol, you're in a state where you could say something about someone that is not true, and so they applied that rule, that someone blamed someone, you did this, or this lady's like this, or this person's like this, and that person's going to get what? Lashed. Since alcohol did not have a punishment, they applied the same ruling upon alcohol. Why? Because when you're in alcohol, you can say something, and this was the ruling of Abu Bakr, of Omar, of Uthman, and Ali. They differed in the number of lashes, but this was the ruling. And this became the Islamic ruling of all four fuqaha, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Ahmad bin Hanbal, that when somebody is drunk, he will be lashed 40 times, 70 times, not by a direct text from the Quran or the Sunnah, but from extrapolating by qiyas, by analogy. That if you say things about someone that is not true, therefore, if you are drunk, you're going to say something that is not true, therefore the punishment will be similar or equal or more or less equal. Does that make sense?
Would you not then apply the same punishment of zina? Because
What about zina?
Because like to be drunk would be also to be in a state where you're more likely to do zina.
Well, zina has a direct, within the Quranic text, zina has a direct, meaning in the Sunnah of the Prophet and the Quran, there's a direct command, if someone does zina, then lash them this many times, or stone them to death if they're married. Okay? So the Quran tells us already what to do clearly in the case of zina.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell us what to do in the case of if somebody drinks alcohol, and alcohol is haram. So there has to be it's a crime. By Islamic law, it's a crime. And so therefore there has to be some punishment. And if there is some punishment, you have to extrapolate that punishment from the sources, which is going to be the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet. If you don't find it there, then how are you going to decide? So this is one thing. This is like one example of qiyas. There are many examples of qiyas. But the interesting thing was, there's a debate between the Hanafis and the Shafi'is. And that is that, can you do qiyas upon qiyas? I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. Quran says, when Quran is being recited, what are you supposed to do? Listen to it and be quiet. So now here's a practical question that happened. So a parrot can learn Quran too. And a parrot can recite Quran too. And they did in the olden days. A parrot would be listening to Quran and it would be reciting the Quran. So now the question is, the Quran says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ, when Quran is recited, right? وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ, listen to it, وَأَنْصِتُوا, and be quiet. Now the question is, that if a parrot is listening to Quran, do you have to listen to the Quran? Tell me what you think. And I'll give you an example of qiyas upon qiyas, which Imam Abu Hanifa allows, but Imam Shafi'i doesn't allow. So I'm giving you an example of that. So there's an analogy. Now, the analogy of the parrot that the scholars of Islam that they decided, especially the Hanafi fuqaha, they said that the parrot is not really a qari. He's not really a what? He's not really a reciter. It's more like looking at an image in a mirror. He's a reflection of the original qari that the parrot is copying, right? He's an aks of the original. He's copying the original. So this is not the qari. You do not have to listen to a parrot, stop your work and listen to a parrot, because the parrot is what? Reciting Quran. Now this was a case that was decided hundreds of years ago. But then there was a new case. people listening to Quran on CDs. And the question that they tried to answer was, is listening to Quran on CDs like listening to a qari, for which you then would have to be silent and listen to it, or is it like a case of listening to the parrot? So the Hanafi scholars said that listening to a CD, again, is an aks. It's like a reflection of the original. It's not the original. It's not a qari. This is a CD. This is not somebody who has iman, who's reciting Quran. And so therefore, this is similar to the parrot case. This is similar to the case of the parrot. So they did qiyas, and upon qiyas, they did qiyas. In Western academics, and if you study American law, common law, there is something called precedent. Right? And precedent means that there is already a case that was there before in which the judge decided such and such, like an abortion case or whatever case, right? So there are so many famous cases in American law, and they'll refer to, in that case, this was the decision taken, right? And so therefore, the same ruling that was there in that case, so you're taking a case that already has a judgment, and you're taking a precedent that already was there, and now you're applying it to a new case, like the parrot and then the CD. Imam Shafi'i, not Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ghazali. Imam who? Ghazali, who was a Shafi'i, not Hanafi. What I told you about is qiyas upon qiyas is allowed in which school of thought? Hanafi school of thought. Imam Shafi'i gives the example, and I'm going to ask you, which one do you agree with? So Imam Shafi'i gives the example, let's say if you're on a beach, and you pick up a shell, or what is it called?
Pebble.
Not pebble, the seashell. You pick up a seashell, and now you're looking for another one that looks just like this one. Now you find another one, and now there are two similar seashells. Now you drop the first one. And now you continue to look for another seashell that looks like the second one. And so you pick up the third one. When you pick up the third one, you drop the second one. By the time you do this 4 or 5 times and you go back to the original seashell, they will not be,
Original or copy.
they will not look the same, Imam Shafi'i says. They'll look somewhat different. And so he says, therefore, qiyas upon qiyas upon qiyas it cannot be allowed that just because there's a precedent, okay, that certain case, you have to every time go back to the original Quran and Sunnah and redecide based upon Quran and Sunnah that this is what this situation. So in other words, in the Hanafi fiqh, what they did is they looked at the case of the parrot and decided the case of the CD. The Shafi'is would say, no, you cannot do that. You need to go back to Quran and Sunnah, go back to the ayah where it says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنْصِتُوا. When Quran is recited, listen to it carefully and be quiet, and then extrapolate directly from there. Right? You cannot use the previous case to judge the case of a new situation. Now, I'm going to ask you, what is your feeling? Daniel, what do you think? Would you go with the Hanafi method, or would you agree with Imam Shafi'i in the case that he gave of the seashells? So you agree with Imam Shafi'i. So you don't think that the example of the parrot and the CD are similar enough to be valid? Huh? You agree with Imam Shafi'i. Okay, what about you?
I agree, Imam Shafi'i.
You agree with Imam Shafi'i too? Oh my God. Okay, what about you? Huh?
I agree with Imam Shafi'i.
It just makes sense. Extrapolation is like, I'm not saying that it's wrong to do, but it's already like it's from incomplete data. So to do it, to take incomplete data and gather it from already incomplete data, it's just I think it could be dangerous.
I can respect that. Yara, what do you think? You don't know? Yes, Sister Salma, what do you think?
I think there's, if you relate parrot with the CD, there's a huge difference here. There's a bird, there's a human being which was recorded. And you can imagine and you can listen.
Are you traveling?
Be quiet.
quiet.
Yes.
You can pray on the other side, Michelle.
Okay, try to walk behind the camera.
So, you agree with Imam Shafi'i too then, you're saying? No, you didn't say that, okay. So, I didn't hear it. So you're saying there is similarity between the two?
There's no
Other building.
similarity, like, you can say the
Downstairs.
parrot is reciting, but the meaning, parrot is just like, you know, unconsciously is, you know, this, it's not, the qari, different with the qari and the parrot, I feel like it's huge. You cannot correlate these two.
So you think there's a big difference between a parrot and a CD?
Yes.
In which case you would be agreeing with Imam Shafi'i. Okay, what do you think?
I agree with Imam Shafi'i.
What do you think?
When you look at the American law system, Roe versus Wade, they always, what you just said, that's accurate. They always use previous cases. However, sometimes conditions may differ. They use previous cases as reference only to make judgment on the current case they're dealing with. But conditions may differ. What you mentioned is a parrot reciting the Quran. Or, for example, you're listening to a CD. Yes, it's an example that both are same copy of the same source. But of course, I mean, it doesn't matter. Quran it's different. If you hear the Quran being recited by whomever, our obligation is to pay respect and listen and be quiet.
Even if it's a parrot?
It doesn't matter because when you deal with
Okay,
animals,
so you're giving your own opinion, right? So I'm not
That's
interested
correct.
in
Yeah, I
I'm not
apologize.
interested in your opinion.
I apologize.
I'm interested in, do you agree in the idea of qiyas?
It will change, yes. Yeah. It will change through time. The more
And
the
do you
process.
agree with the idea of doing qiyas upon qiyas?
Correct, yeah.
Yes, you do, or you don't?
No, I mean, I do agree that based on the several measures that you take on and on, then you're dealing with, instead of an orange, an apple and an orange.
So let's take a more practical example, right? Drugs. Let's say cocaine. There was no cocaine at the time of the Prophet. How do we come to any conclusion about cocaine? From the original sources.
Who listed as an intoxicant?
Huh? Okay, so you're saying, therefore, which we call in Arabic illa, the cause. You're saying that there is some similarity between alcohol and cocaine. What is that similarity according to you?
It harms the body.
Okay, so if it's just about harming the body, then you can also include cigarettes, you can also include Diet Coke, you can also include a whole bunch of things that we do on a regular basis. Using plastic,
They're called brain controlled substance.
You
That's what
just
drugs
told
are.
about alcohol, that it's gonna, you will say something bad about somebody when you are, you know, in the form of pleasure. Similarly, the drugs will do.
you want to pray? Oh, pizza. Oh, okay. So, khamar means to cover. What khamar, the word, the word used in Quran for alcohol is what? Khamar. Okay? So khamar, what does it do? It covers your
Brain.
brain. Now, khamar is a very good example of this discussion of qiyas and istihsan. So let's discuss this. Khamar covers your brain, right? Cocaine does what?
It's a brain controlled substance.
It covers your
Brain.
in a similar way. Because cocaine does something similar to alcohol, because it has the same effect
Yes.
as alcohol, so the scholars of Islam have said almost unanimously, drugs, in fact, Sister Leila, aren't drugs called khamarat? Or something like, the word khamar is used in one of the, mukhaddarat is common, but I've also, okay, maybe I'm wrong. But drugs cover your brain, right? And alcohol covers your brain. So that's the illa. That's the reason that there is a similarity. Even though Quran does not talk about cocaine or drugs or any of that, but you take something from the original source that has a similar effect to something new that was not being used in the past, and you show that there is a correlation between the two. However, and I want to know what you think about this, there are some scholars, very famous scholars, that say that no, you cannot even do that. You cannot say alcohol and then cocaine and try to look for a similarity between the two and try to say cocaine is haram because alcohol is haram. You cannot do that. Ibn Hazm rahmatullah alayh, who wrote the famous book Al-Muhada, is of that opinion. Jafri fiqh is also of that opinion. They say you can use your aql, but you cannot use qiyas. You cannot use analogy. You cannot say alcohol is haram, therefore something that has a similar effect like alcohol is also haram, or something equal to, meaning it can be makruh. Some scholars say that if there's an analogy between two things, it cannot hold the same hukm, meaning in terms of had. So if the hukm of alcohol is lashing someone 70 times, then for cocaine it cannot be 70 times. It can be something less than 70 times in terms of the punishment, and also in terms of if it's haram or makruh. They may say, well, anyway, there's debates in that. The point I want to make, I want to ask you this question. Do you think, Danyad, it's right to take alcohol and look at the effect alcohol has on someone, and then look at, let's say, cocaine or drugs and the effect it has on someone, and to say that because they have a similar effect, they will have the same punishment, or that they will both be haram? Because this is haram, this will also be haram. Do you think that's okay to do that? You think it's allowed? But you realize that if you say cocaine is haram, you are making something haram that Allah did not make haram, which is haram. But you are having the audacity to say cocaine is haram because you're looking at something from the Quran that's haram and saying that because that is haram, there's a similarity with cocaine, and therefore it is haram. And you are speaking on behalf of God, something He did not say. So how do you deal with that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we derive the fact that alcohol is haram. It comes from, like,
There's a clear verse in the Quran, it's haram.
Yeah, but what is the word that they use? Is it a word specifically for alcohol?
Yeah. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عَمَلُ الشَّيْطَانِ. It is impure, it's the action of shaitan. So it's clear it's haram. Okay? Unanimously everybody agrees alcohol is haram. But what makes cocaine haram? Yeah.
It's harming the body.
But if you do that, then if you just leave it at that, then you have to include a lot of things that we do on a regular basis. And are all those things haram?
May I? Allah in the Quran, He complimented mankind and gave them the power to think and gave us the brain, where He lifted us much higher than any other creatures that He created.
Okay.
And any drugs that is brain-controlled substance, such as a khamr or alcohol, anything that controls our mind and stop us from thinking.
You need to pray?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
And stop us from thinking and using our brain to see what's right and wrong. That is where the harm will come from.
Okay, but if you're going to leave it at harm, then that's too big. You have to make it specific.
But there is analogy. There is a story. I don't know if you heard it. A woman asked a Muslim man, to carry her shopping bags. They went to the house. At the door, she said, "Why don't you come inside and put the shopping bags inside?" He came inside. Then she closed the door and she said, "You have three things."
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
But there is in the Quran, it says, do not go close to Salah until you understand what you're saying.
Okay, so that gives you the causative
Exactly.
effect.
Exactly.
Right.
And that is exactly what cocaine does to you. You do not know what you're saying.
So it is. So you have a part of Quran that gives you the reasoning. This is qiyas. It gives you the reasoning. And so because ulama used qiyas. They used this type of reasoning, for example, I was giving the example of the had, or the punishment for drinking alcohol, even though it's not there. They applied it with another verse, where you accuse someone of something that's not true, and so therefore your mind, you will not know what you are saying, right? وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى. Do not go near prayers while you're intoxicated. So if you do not go near prayers while you're drinking or taking alcohol or drugs. Similar? Right? Very specific, very, very, what? Similar. Right? So this is qiyas. It's an analogy. Now Ibn Hazm, rahmatullahi alayhi, who I said disagrees with qiyas completely, he says, you can find something similar between any two things in the world. He literally says, you can find something similar between two things, if you're really looking for it. And so then you are speaking on behalf of God, and that's not right. So now that that has been cleared, let's talk about another issue. So when you are looking for, now, so this is how Islamic law, you could say, grew, evolved, so on and so forth. So the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about a cat, that they are pure and they move around in your area of living and they're pure. Anybody read this hadith about the Prophet saying this about the cat? Any of you? Yes? The cats are pure. Now I'm going to ask you this question. Can you say this about any domesticated animal then? You don't think so?
No. Because we can already see, like, we've domesticated dogs. We have a deed that says...
No, but dogs will be different because we have something very specific about dogs, right? What about other domesticated animals, like a hen or a rooster, or so those things that have been negated, like a dog, those are negated. We know those are not allowed, right? Would you apply that hadith about the cat, or would you say, look, we don't need to extrapolate. We don't need to find the reasoning for everything. The Prophet said the cat is allowed, you don't have to extend it to other things. Why do you want to extend it to other things? And the answer to that is because there may be a situation where there is something that was not there at the time of the Prophet, like a rabbit. Somebody's house has a rabbit, and it's even a halal animal, which means it's even more clean than, let's say, a cat in some ways. Because the saliva of halal animals has a different hukum than animals that are not halal. In other words, the saliva of a camel or a saliva of a goat doesn't make your clothes najas. Okay? So like a cat is going to eat something, right? That's what it's going to do. So, but the whiskers of a cat and the saliva of a cat are debatable, because cat isn't an animal you can eat, or is not preferred not to eat, so it's different from the animals you can eat. Anyway, I don't want to make it too complicated, but my point here is, do we leave it at, look, the Prophet allowed cats, leave it at that? Or do we say, well, the Prophet allowed cats, so what other animals would fall into that category? How would you like to operate as a judge whose cases are coming to you? Then, what would you do? Would you just say, look, this is what the Prophet said, leave it at that? We don't need to go into why the Prophet said this and how this applies to other things. Or would you just say, look, the Prophet mentioned it for the cat, that's it, that's for the cat, and I don't have to deal with looking at the wisdom behind it. Which is what? So you would extrapolate to the wisdom of it? So you wouldn't say, so what if somebody says to you, look, the Prophet said that about the cat, you don't need to worry about the rabbits and the other stuff. Huh? Alright, what do you think?
I mean, I feel like you would have to try and extrapolate, just because there could be cases where like if you don't know if the animal is pure, there could be cases where people don't know, like, if their prayer could be accepted. So for that reason, you would have to try and find a way to determine.
What do you think? Just leave it at, look, the Prophet said cats are pure, that's it. We don't need to necessarily extrapolate from there the wisdom behind this and try to apply it to other animals and see what other animals fit into that category. Let me give you another example. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet said, do not judge for a judge. A judge should not judge when he's angry. Can you extrapolate from there, therefore a judge should not judge if he's too sad or depressed, or he should not judge if he's too hungry, or he should not judge if he's having like an extraordinarily bad day? Would you extrapolate that from that saying of the Prophet? What do you think?
I feel like it's also kind of contextual. Like if you were to say like do not judge unless you're in a good mood, like I don't know. Like I feel like the wording it seems specific.
Okay, don't judge don't judge while you're angry, right?
Yeah.
That's there. But we also have a precedent of you can miss your prayers a little bit if you're hungry. Right? Omar used to, radiallahu anh, delay his prayers or not go to Jama'ah immediately if he was already eating food and the adhan started. Not like today. Today you know what time the adhan is going to be called. Right? In the olden days, the muazzin is looking at the sun, and Omar is maybe not looking at the sun. It's like, nowadays it's different because so he's not like on purpose, okay, let me time it so that I start eating it while the adhan is going to go on. It's not the point, right? So the adhan goes on, he thought he would finish earlier, whatever it is, and Omar keeps eating and he doesn't join the Jama'ah until he finishes his food. Based upon that now, would you say, when the Prophet said, do not judge while you are angry, would you also say, don't judge while you're hungry? Maybe that'll make you, because you're hungry, so you might make a judgment before hearing everything. Yes? Would you think that this applies to being hungry too?
No.
No? What about you?
No, I don't think so.
What about you? He thinks it would apply. I also agree with him. What do you think? Huh?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
What do you think, Sister Salma?
Yeah, I think it's, whatever Prophet says, I will stick with that.
Oh, so you wouldn't say for hunger? Or would you?
No.
I
What
see-
about you?
It will apply.
It will apply? Okay, now let me give you an example where it's the opposite. We talked about alcohol. Don't go near prayer while you're intoxicated, and we talked about how that relates to drugs. What about if the opposite happens? What if you take something and it makes you more aware of yourself? For example, tea or coffee. Scholars of Islam, many, I'm not talking about like one scholar, I'm talking about many scholars of Islam have talked about the benefits of drinking tea. Okay? In fact, there are some scholars that have gone as far as saying that if you see tea in someone's hand, if you see tea in someone's hand, it's like he's a wali of Allah. Because he's doing the opposite to his brain. He's trying to use his brain to do tahajjud prayer. He's using coffee to drink. Coffee was made by Muslims, according to one research I read, right? And the story behind it is the person wanted to pray tahajjud, so he had this dream. And they take these leaves and, he had coffee and Allahu A'lam. But anyway, the point is, tea or coffee affects your brain in the opposite direction that alcohol does, right? So, some scholars of Islam though, some of them, say because it affects your brain, and the word khamar means to cover, and it affects your brain, even though it may be in a positive sense, but still because it's affecting your brain, and just by the fact it's affecting your brain, many scholars, in fact many even scholars in India, they don't drink tea at all. Because they say it affects your brain. It's a little bit, doesn't make it haram, because you still know what you're saying, but it affects your brain, so they will abstain from drinking tea. And you have another group of scholars that are saying, no, tea is a good thing, you should have it definitely, because it's doing the opposite of what alcohol does. What do you feel about that? So you think you should?
Yeah.
What do you think, Abu Bakr?
Yeah.
Drink tea? Are you saying that because you desire saying that, or you're actually like looking at the situation and trying to...
If it's the opposite, bad things is good.
But alcohol affects your brain and tea affects your brain too.
But tea is the greater than good one.
But who are you to say if it's good or bad? I mean, the fact that it affects the brain should be bad enough.
I feel like in today's age, like with neuroscience, you'd have to look at how it affects the brain specifically. Like we could do that now.
So science can help, definitely. I agree that in many of the 50 cases, science can help. Like for example, there is a debate between Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik if you can eat bones or not. And the reason that debate existed is because is there blood in bones? Because blood is haram, right? So if you eat bone, is there blood in... So Imam Malik allowed eating bones. And Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't allow eating bones. So now we can use science to tell if there's blood in bones. Dr. Saab, is there blood in bones? Right? So Imam Abu Hanifa is right. There's no question about this. We scientifically know there's blood in bones now. So it's better to stay away, for sure. So Imam Malik, he gets his reward for making ijtihad, but Imam Abu Hanifa gets twice the reward in this case. Right? Okay. Let me ask you, what do you think about tea then? Do you just say because it affects your brain, therefore it's better to abstain, or do you say, hey, this is kind of doing the opposite?
Rather than just going opposite, it doesn't cause you to become incompetent. Like, so you're still fully aware of what you're doing. Even though it affects your brain, you're still aware. You're still confident.
As you said, that alcohol is going to cover you, right? The tea is opening your mind.
But with that argument, then you could say that amphetamines are halal. Like just free use of amphetamines. Because
Well,
it does the
that
opposite.
is the point. That's where this discussion would finally end up, right? That what is the actual cause of something being halal or haram? And so you're trying to look for that. You're trying to pinpoint to that thing. Now, drugs can be uppers or downers, right? And anyway, that's a complicated discussion. Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about qiyas, and we've talked a little bit about what we call illa. Why is something halal or haram, and how you can go back to the original text and apply it to a new case that never existed. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these cases, okay? But let's now talk about something. We were talking about qiyas. You're using analogy. You're trying to look for something that's very specific of why something is haram in the past and apply it to something new that has never been experienced, okay? But let's now talk about something called istihsan. Istihsan is the idea, or there's another word for this that I'd like to start off with called maslaha and mafsada. Maslaha is, if it's good, it's good. And if it's bad, it's bad. Meaning if something is good, it's good. Why can't we just have a rule, for example, that says, if there's maslaha in it, if there's good in it, then it's good. And if there's mafsada in it, bad things in it, it's bad. Why can't we use that as a yardstick? Or do you think this is too wide? So Imam Malik says, and Imam Abu Hanifa says, maslaha or istihsan can be used, and Imam Malik also says, yes, you can use this. As long as the person has a good fitrah, a good nature, he'll be able to see what is good, he'll be able to see what is bad, and he'll be able to make a decision based upon that. But Imam Malik adds a condition. And that is, well, you have to know a little bit of Maliki fiqh to appreciate that, but the condition he puts it is that as long as the people of Medina agree with it. As long as the people agree with that this is good, and it's in line with what the people of Medina have been doing before me, right? That this is a good direction to go to, then it's good, right? And if it's mafsada, and Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, they don't agree with this at all. They say this is just leaving the doors too open. There's no, like, you're just leaving it too open. It's not specific. There have to be specific rules. I don't like, and Imam Shafi'i is basically, I don't like the idea of maslaha and mafsada. And Imam Abu Hanifa is, and Imam Malik is, yes. Ahmad bin Hanbal and Imam Shafi'i on one side on this issue, Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik on the other side of this issue. I want to know, what do you think, Abu Bakr? Huh? You don't know? What do you think? Should a judge have a right to say, you know what, I think that's good. Okay, yeah, that's good. That's allowed. It's istihsan.
But I agree with Shafi again.
Another aspect of istihsan is something, for example, in Imam, it's not in Abu Hanifa's fiqh, but in terms of a concept, but it's there in practice. So one of them is urf. Urf means whatever people do. Meaning, there's a certain way people do things in a certain place, in a certain city, they do certain things in that way. If it's not harming it, why change it, for example? Right? Everybody's used to doing something in a certain way, why change it? So istihsan maybe a judge says, hey, leave things, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep doing it the way it is. Don't do it the way the other people in another city are doing it. So what I'm trying to say is istihsan too wide, too open? Or do you think that it could, let human nature decide what's good and bad and what's wrong with that? What do you think, Danielle? Do you think human nature should be in a position to decide what's right and wrong? Huh? You don't think so? Do you think human nature should be in a position to decide what is right and what is wrong?
No.
Oh my God.
Why
Okay.
not?
What do you think?
No.
Huh?
No.
No. We should have some rules.
We have
like,
some
you know,
rules,
to
and
follow.
then, yeah.
I mean, we can decide what we
I
want.
agree that like if something is not broken, you don't fix it as long as like.
No, but that's just one specific example.
Right.
The point is that a judge is using his heart, right? Iftah qalbak, the Prophet said. Open your heart and decide with your, like the Prophet, somebody asked the Prophet a question, and the Prophet's answer was iftah qalbak. Open your heart, let your heart decide. So istihsan is kind of like that. You see a case and you're going to decide. You have your rules and everything, but if it's something that's not, that's not, that, let's say there is no precedent for it in the past, right? And now you're going to use your own judgment. Should a human being be allowed to use his fitrah to decide what's right and what's wrong? What do you think, Sister Layla?
I'm okay with this exam because you have to ifti qalbak, so you can do it if you're following the rule that no, this is not wrong. If it's not haram, like, okay, you can.
So you think Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal are wrong?
I missed that.
Huh?
They said no with this exam?
They don't agree with this istihsan. They said our fitrah should not, our heart,
No,
our fitrah should not be deciding what's right and
No,
wrong.
it's true. It's true. I think it's true.
I say that I think that on a personal level, it should be able to decide, but as far as making law, it shouldn't. Because different people's hearts can say different things.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's discuss something else. I don't have it with me. So tasbih, right? Tasbih. What is going to be your response to doing something that was not done at the time of the Prophet? Right? So in the time of the Prophet, they didn't have misbah. They didn't have what? The thing you use to say subhanallah, 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 subhanallah. They didn't have it at the time of the Prophet. So should we be allowing that?
Why not? There's something wrong with it.
Then now you're using your fitrah
Yes.
to decide the answer to that.
So you can.
But Imam Shafi would say you can't do that. You have to go back to the source, Quran and Sunnah, and give an answer from there.
Yeah, but like time change and things change.
So would you allow misbah? Would you use a misbah?
I personally don't.
Would
I don't
you?
see anything wrong with it.
What's wrong with it is the Prophet didn't do it, and his companions, well, I don't want to say that. The Prophet didn't do it.
I mean, you could easily just say that the prophet could count better. I mean, like,
No, you can't say that, but it's probably true. What do you think, Danielle?
I don't see anything wrong with it, so I think that
So just because there's something not wrong with it, then it's okay to use? I don't see anything wrong with praying 6 times a day either. So how do you decide? Yes, Abu Bakr.
I mean, he didn't say not to, so
No, that's not how the ruling goes.
they help to They help someone to establish sunnah.
So, some scholars will say, look, Aisha radiallahu anha, she used date seeds to count. She used, there's an authentic riwayah, so you are going back to the source, and she used what? She used date seeds to count how many times she was doing her tasbih. And the Prophet gave us numbers, right? He said 33 times. Did he not give us a specific number? Read this 7 times, read this 33 times, read this 100 times, read this. Didn't he give us a specific number? So, if the Prophet didn't do something, but something facilitates us to do what the Prophet said, is it okay? So, why not just say, look, Aisha used the date seeds, why can't we use date seeds? Why do we have to create a tasbih? Because remember, you're dealing with a people and a generation, they did not want to do anything different from the way that the Prophet did it, right? For them, it was very, very important. For us, we can use our fitrah and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, I'll do it. But that's not how they function for the most part. They wanted to know that they were in line with the tradition, 100%. So now I'm asking you, if somebody creates a tasbih, and the analogy they give is that Aisha, or the qiyas that they give is Aisha used date seeds to count her tasbih. So why can't we have our own tasbih we make? Would you think that's fair, or do you think that's going too far?
I think it depends on the significance you give it.
Significance is the same, it's tasbih, it's sunnah. Right? What do you think, Daniel? What do you think, Abu Bakr? Having a tasbih is okay or not okay?
It's okay.
Huh?
It's okay.
You think it's okay? Why?
I mean, because a date seed is kind of similar to like the beads or like tasbih.
What do you think?
I don't think it's like a matter of right or wrong. I think it really depends on the person's intentions, what they're using it for.
But then you're now saying, istihsan. You're saying, hey, it looks good to me, let's do it.
Not look good to me, but like
You're saying, hey, we don't have to care about what Quran and Sunnah says.
See, they're not again, it will be there.
yeah, like some people may not be able to keep count on their hands for whatever reason. I mean, concentration issues. I don't know. Where they may need like something like a seed, you know, to help them.
So you're okay with that?
Visual. I mean, I'm not saying I'm okay, but I'm just like for me, I'd rather just use my hands because I'm capable. of
Okay,
doing it.
that's fine, that's fine.
But if someone says that they have to use it because it makes them be able to keep count, I'm not going to discredit them for that.
Okay. So, are you okay with it in general? Or are you okay with it because it goes back to Aisha's using the date seed to count?
Basically, it's going back to her, right?
I mean, I didn't know that's the reason why people use it. I mean, that's where they get that from? Like, because
No, there are two places where they get it from. So sometimes you can have the same result, but the sources could be two different sources.
yeah.
So one source is the Prophet gave specific numbers. And so anything facilitating that number the Prophet mentioned is allowed then. If the Prophet said do this 100 times, like 33 times, 33 times, 33 times, anything that facilitates that will be allowed. And another group of scholars say, no, that's not because the Prophet didn't do it, but because Aisha did it, that's the reason it's allowed.
Okay, but then the problem comes in when you have people with these texts and they make it like almost like if it's like spiritual, like it has blessings on it, and then they start doing different things with it. That's when it becomes like, okay, you start questioning, like, as if is this something that you use as a means of worship versus like something that aids you and you like to make you be able to do it, but then you take it as like I need to have this in order for me to actually do my thing.
Like without this I can't do my tasbih?
Right.
Okay. So obviously, I'm not talking about that, okay? So that's a different situation. I'm only asking that would you take either the argument that because the Prophet gave a specific number, therefore anything facilitating that number is allowed, A, or because Aisha had date seeds and she counted on them, therefore you can have something, a tasbih or anything, like even something electronic, whatever it is, right? Would you say that these two things are similar?
I would say they're similar.
What would you say to somebody that says, look, Aisha used a date seed, but she was, one of many Sahaba, many companions of the Prophet. They didn't all do it. It didn't really become part of their culture. To kind of like zone into that is maybe not appropriate.
I mean, it's a narration of her, and how can you discredit it? I mean, it's a hadith. You can't.
Well, it's not a hadith, it's an athar. So the
Okay.
Prophet didn't say it, Aisha did it.
Aisha did it.
Yes.
But okay, did that come from like a story, or like who reported that Aisha did that?
It's an authentic narration, but it's called athar. So anything the Prophet says or did is called a hadith, right? Anything a companion of the Prophet said or did is called athar. Okay? So there are many athar, there are many narrations of a companion doing something that is not narrated from the Prophet, peace be upon him.
But if it comes from the previous generations, then the people have, I think that provides people a way to make an excuse for using it. I mean, you shouldn't argue. If they say this is what Aisha did and there's proof, there's authentication behind that, then I think that should facilitate people who want to use beads to do testing.
Okay? What do you think?
I agree with her.
What do you think?
I think it has precedent. There's nothing wrong with it, it's okay.
Alright, so let me give one final example because I also want to cover a few other topics and we have like 5 minutes left. Because qiyas is one topic, istihsan is another topic, but I want to also talk about maqasid al-sharia, which I think is like just completely fabulous. In fact, let me tell you a story of Imam Shafi'i because Imam Shafi'i kind of started this, and that is that it started with qiyas, the history of Islam, and how do we deal with something the Prophet didn't have, started with using what? Qiyas, in the time of the companions of the Prophet, okay? But then, some of the scholars, including Imam Shafi'i, came up with an idea, why don't we create qawaid? Qawaid means rules. They're like general rules a judge keeps in mind that when he makes a judgment, for example, one of the rules is la darra wa la darar, which is an actual hadith of the Prophet. There's no causing of harm, okay? This is what the Prophet, this is a general rule. And the general rule is not causing harm is more important than doing something good. So when we were looking at the example of the original where we were talking about the car that's going to hit, right? Islamically, the response is not causing harm is more important than doing something good. So when you're in the boat and you're going to kill someone, that's what? Causing harm. The Islamic rule is, Allah, even when you're going to Hajj, Allah says, وَلَا رَفَسَ وَلَا فُسُوكَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. There's no pushing, shoving, yelling, screaming, or doing all this in Hajj. And whatever you do of good things, Allah knows of it. Right? So always you find this in Islamic, when you read the Quran, it becomes, like for example, we say, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ first, then we say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So removing the harm is always the priority, then doing something good. Right? So now when you look at those cases that I mentioned, which I don't think we'll have time to go to right now, but the point is that scholars of Islam, when they were looking at qiyas, then they started looking at what are some qawaid al-fiqhiyya, some of the qawaid rulings that we can have that when you are judging, it will help you come to the right conclusion. Okay? And these are derived from the Quran and Sunnah. So for one of them, what I mentioned, it is very important not to cause what? Harm. Don't cause harm. Okay? And so we'll look at 2 very interesting examples, and then we'll talk about maqasid, and then we'll pray inshallah after that. I don't think we'll have time to finish it, but I want to share with you this example of how Islamic law differs from Western law. So this will be like a good example. Okay, let's say there's a house, and they have a window on top. Okay? And another neighbor comes and builds a house, and they also have a window on top where they're able to see into the house of the first person. Okay? Now this person, let's say this first person has daughters, and the daughters are in the room upstairs, and they have a window, and now this other house has sons, and now they're able to look into the window and see the daughters of the other house. If you go to Western law and say, hey, this person put a window, knowing that I have a window there too, and they can see my daughters. Western law will tell you what? If you don't like it, then what? Cover your window. If you don't want them looking at you, go ahead, put the screen there. They have the right to do whatever they want to do. If you go to a Muslim judge, the Muslim judge is going to say, hey, they were there before. You're the one causing harm to them. You need to you cannot do this. Put the window on another side where you cannot look into the people's private. Because they were already there for 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Right? And now you're going to force them to close their screens. Islam doesn't see that as a good thing. Don't cause harm is the first Islamic ruling regarding anything in general. But I was saying that scholars of Islam came up with rulings, like rules of wisdom of when they will make a judgment, how the judgment will be. Okay? I'll give you another example. Let's say there are two neighbors, and one neighbor has a well. Has what? A well. They're using the well for the family, and now this new house comes, and they dig in, and they are taking the water from their land, but it's coming from this person's land. Meaning they're sucking it, right? And so the sucking is taking it, the original source of it is in this person's land, and so now it's sucking the water, okay? And it's going to the other person's land, and he's using it for his family. This person has a problem, he goes to court. He goes to two courts. He goes to the Muslim judge and the Western judge. What will happen? The Western judge will say, yeah, there's no problem. The Muslim judge will say, if there's enough water for everyone to share, there's no harm. Go ahead and use it. But if the water every day is only that much that's enough for this family, right, because different wells have different amounts of water. If there's only enough for this family to use, and the amount that they've been regularly using for the past 10 years, and now you're taking away from that, the Muslim judge may say, what? You have to close your well, because people have been using this water for a long time. The point I'm trying to make is simply this, is that there are qawa'id al-fiqhiyya, for example, don't cause harm is one of them. Another one is facilitate ease. Facilitate what? Ease. If there are two right opinions, take the opinion that is easier and facilitates things makes things easier for the, what? Makes things easier for the people. Just a very general rule. So, how many of these qawa'id al-fiqhiyya does a judge have to memorize? How many in Islamic law? How many do you think that there are these rules that a judge should know, and he should be able to, like Dr. Khan mentions one all the time, قَتْلُ الْإِذَا قَبْلَ يُوزَى. Kill the... قَبْلَ الْمُوزَى قَبْلَ الْإِذَى. Yeah. Kill the thing that will cause harm before it causes harm. Right? A general rule, a very general rule. Huh? So you can see, it started in the time of the companions with QIYAS. Then it became, let's find the general, because you're looking at illa, what's the reasoning for this? What's the reasoning for this? What's the reasoning that this is similar to this? Then they came up with qawaid. Okay? And by the time the Muslims were in the Ottoman Empire, the judges had to memorize almost about like 90 some qawaid al-fiqhiyya. There were about 90 of them. That the judge had to know, as he's making judgment, facilitate things for people, so on and so forth, okay? Then this led to people like Imam Shafi. Make sure to subscribe today, and make sure you like, and make sure you leave your comments and ideas. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
أشهد أن لا